Hi, my name is Katharina Smith, and I work at EA Waddell, and I'm here to give you 3 activities that you can use in the classroom. I used this first activity with grade 3 for German reading, and it was a character analysis. After we read a book together in class, the students were asked to compare and contrast the 2 main characters. The students were using Venn diagrams in order to organize their thoughts. The students then had the task of taking those thoughts and writing them in complete sentences. After they did this task, then they were asked to assess their own abilities at completing the task. So since they're 3rd graders, I like to give them the option of having a middle ground. In the biography portion of the LinguaFolio, it either says I can do this easily or it's a goal. I always let them say I can do it by myself, or I can do it with help, or I need more practice. So in order to get them familiar with the I can statements, it's important to do activities like this one. So before we would go into the biography to use the checklist, we would do this first, and then we would do something similar again before going into the biography. The next activity that I have used it in is for grammar skills. This was also grade 3, it was language arts, German. The students were having to do worksheets on various skills such as spelling, conjugation, categorizing parts of speech, identifying subject predicate, and forming compound words. The students don't tend to like to do grammar. They think, oh, grammar, it's boring, dry, not that exciting. However, my worksheets, the ones from Germany, have, some of them, a traffic light on them. And this makes it all the more fascinating to them. So here, if you see my little traffic light, the students, after doing their skill, say it was categorizing parts of speech, when they were completing the skill, after they were done, they would go and they would say, okay, well, I had trouble doing it, so I'm going to color the red light. And then they said, well, I needed just a little bit of help, so I'm going to color the yellow light. Or, I got this was easy, and they'll color the green light. Then there's no words on the page, but just a simple color-coded indicator. Then they knew how they had done and their own feelings of success and ownership on that skill. The students liked this a lot. In fact, they liked it so much that if I said we were going to do German, they were like, oh, is it regular German or is it LinguaFolio German? If it's LinguaFolio German, we're ready. If it was regular German, they were just like, ah. So it really made a difference. Just a simple traffic light, just an easy way to assess how you're doing, and the children really looked forward to this. Just went like that. The last activity that I have is grade 5. We did science in German, and we were working on biomes. We had just done a unit of study on biomes. The students were asked to each pick one biome to present to the class using a descriptive poster. Students had the option of either doing the poster in a group or on their own. If they worked on their own, they also had the option to consult the other groups for input to create their poster, but they still had to do the presenting on their own. And if they worked in a group, then they had to present with their group. This also gave them that middle ground sense of I could do it with help, but it also allowed them the opportunity to go back and set goals after they finished this project. Then they said, you know what, I didn't really need to work in a group, so next time I do something like this, I can do it by myself. Or the next time, they could say, well, I presented by myself, but I wasn't really comfortable standing up there. I wasn't really confident. Maybe next time I need to work in a group and build my skills a little bit more in presenting and speaking in German and talking about content area. So we actually used those goals and applied them then to social studies. We had done the biomes in science. We went on into social studies, and we did then climates and regions. So they kind of had a little bit of knowledge. They were related, so they had this confidence about them, and they knew, based on the last time, what they felt comfortable with, where they were, and what they needed to do. And the children really enjoyed that. They were very proud of what they had done, and they had a sense of ownership and pride in their work because they had set their own goals, they'd had experience with it before, and then they were able to apply that to the next project. So those are my 3 short activities. They're regular classroom activities that you might have at any given time, but I turn them into LinguaFolio type activities by having that self-assessment, that piece of reflecting and then setting goals for the next time. So in order to start using the biography of LinguaFolio, like I said, you should first do those kinds of activities, which all you have to do is look at your planning and say, where would LinguaFolio fit into this? How can I turn this assignment that I'm going to do into a LinguaFolio assignment. And it's usually just a matter of using your objective, because that already comes in the student will be able to statement. So turn that into an I can, and you are already halfway there. After you do those activities, then you want to go to your biography and go to the checklist that corresponds with the kind of activity you did. So for my biomes activity, we might have looked at 2 sections of the biography checklist. We might look at reading and writing, because they had to read it to comprehend what they wanted to write about. They have to do the writing. And then we also could go and look at speaking skills, because they had to present it. So then we have some goals they could work at just from that one classroom activity. In order to go over those checklists, you can decide to do it as a whole class, or you can do it in small groups. I like to do it both ways. It depends on the class. Sometimes it's fitting to do the whole class. Sometimes it's better to have a small group. You'll know your students and know what works best. And then you want to make sure that you come back and review those goals, because if you just check off you're going to have a goal and then you don't come back and check it, the students say, what was the point? We never followed up on that. So what I like to do is use a date and a color code. So for example, if this is our copy of our biography checklist, up to here at the top, I would put a color, and next to it I'd put the date. And then when they go and check down here, they would use that color, and then they would know it was on that date. When we come back and see it the next time, we'll use a different color and we'll put the date. So then they can see, did I move from not being able to do this was my goal, to being able to do it, or okay, it's 3 weeks later, I still can't do it, but that's okay. I still know I need to work on this goal. This way they track their progress and they're monitoring their progress. Students really like this because then they felt they could see where they were having success and where they still needed to work and to attain their goals. So you do want to come back and check it periodically. Every few weeks or a month, depends on how often you're working on that skill. The next thing I did with my older students, my 5th grade students, was I held a student-teacher conference individually, once a quarter. Then we could review the biography together, see where their goals were, see what they're working on, and then we could talk about how we plan to attack those goals. And for students who have very broad goals or a tremendous amount of goals, we pared it down and said, what can we focus on first? And I let them know activities that were coming up that would help them reach those goals. Then I like to keep the paper ones. I know that we're talking about LinguaFolio and going paperless, but I like the paper, as I said, with the color coding and all. It makes that very practical. So where do you keep it? So for my 3rd grade students, I kept it just in a milk crate or a filing cabinet, somewhere centrally located where the students know where it is, it's easy to get to, but I have the main control over making sure it doesn't get lost or anything like that. For my 5th grade students, they had binders, and they kept it in there, and then they could add their work for their dossier, and it was very manageable for the 5th graders. And as you probably heard, the first thing you should do is set your goals small. Don't try to tackle everything at once. It's just too much to tackle. And as I mentioned, maybe start in small sections or small areas, and then work your way out. And lastly, just pick one subject area or one of the modes and try it there, and then see where it takes you and your students.